In Castlevania, we find Dracula as he's enjoying a glass of blood with his courtesans. See, Dracula is enjoying the victory over his adversaries, but he tells the ladies to bring him the boy as he has a young Belmont in captivity. Dracula knocks the boy across the room for spitting in his face, but the boy's father shortly comes for him. But the Belmont arrives only to find his son has already been turned into a vampire. But fortunately for Lord Belmont, it's all a dream. Elsewhere, we see his soon-to-be wife, Ilyana, shopping with her mother. But unfortunately, she's confronted by a lord as well as his niece, who doesn't seem to be too fond of the Belmont. But Ilyana pays them no mind as she has a wedding to prepare for. Now, the girl that confronted Ilyana earlier, her name was Soma Bartley, and Soma has a plan to bring back Dracula. As Lord Belmont prepares for his wedding, there's treachery afoot as Sona and her uncle take out the guards as they're preparing a ritual. Ilyana arrives at her wedding, but what she does not realize is Sona has also arrived. As Ilyana and Lord Belmont approach the altar getting ready to commit to each other, Sona's followers commit suicide in preparation of the resurrection of Dracula. Ilyana and Lord Belmont exchange rings as they take each other's hand getting ready to commit. But elsewhere, Sona's plans have been set into motion as Lord Dracula has been resurrected. Ilyana and Lord Belmont kiss, with Dracula vowing revenge on all the remaining Belmonts. Dracula turns into a bat and takes to the night sky with thunder in his wake, as Lord Belmont makes love to his newly begotten wife. As Ilyana and Lord Belmont make love, Dracula proceeds to defile the resting place of the Belmonts. Lord Belmont and Ilyana would fall asleep holding each other closely, but shortly Lord Belmont will be awoken by his groundskeeper, who has dire news. Lord Belmont and crew hop on their horses and they race to the resting place of the Belmont family. Lord Belmont discovers this place has been defiled, and they come to the conclusion that the only one who could have done this is Dracula. Elsewhere, as Dracula rests, Sona taunts her uncle because her uncle believes Sona is going to feed him to Dracula. But Sona laughs as she plans to simply do it herself as she cuts her wrists and proceeds to feed Dracula. Elsewhere, we see this older gentleman going to assist Lord Belmont as he's accompanied by his two relatives, a younger gentleman by the name of Victor and a young lady by the name of Pasha. Back at the Belmont quarters, Belmont's team is preparing for an assault on Dracula, but what Belmont is not expecting is to be reinforced by his one and only wife. Belmont insists his wife stay behind, but he's shortly reinforced by old man Gaspard, and Gaspard gives Lord Belmont this holy weapon in the form of a whip. Now back at Sona's quarters, she's ecstatic as Lord Dracula has finally been resurrected. Lord Belmont convinced Ilya to stay behind as if he were to fall in battle, he needs someone to carry on the Belmont legacy. But Ilya doesn't listen and she decides to take the scenic route as she's accompanied by Victor. Ilya and Victor make for Lord Dracula's castle, but what they do not realize is they're actually being watched. Now, as Dracula watches Ilya, he is also just finished fucking the dog shit out of Sona. And what Sona is finally starting to realize is she's not Dracula's woman, she's merely his servant. But at the same time, Belmont and his team race towards Dracula's lair, but unfortunately, the entire team is held up as they get ambushed by a horde of zombies. Meanwhile, Ilya and Victor have arrived at Dracula's lair, but as they make their way through the castle, unfortunately, they end up falling and hanging for their life. Now, one thing they weren't expecting is to be rescued by none other than Dracula, who has his sights set on Ilya. But Victor stabs Dracula in the leg. But this only serves to piss off Dracula, as Dracula bites Victor and shortly makes Victor one of them. Meanwhile, as Ilya falls, she'd be hoisted away by Dracula. Now Belmont arrives, but unfortunately, he only arrives in time to see Ilya hoisted off by none other than Dracula. Now Lord Belmont wants to rush after them, but he's stopped by Pasha, who reminds him that he needs to be patient. But as he gets stopped by Pasha, these two get third-partied by Victor, who has succumbed to the vampire disease. Now Victor's shot in the neck with an arrow, but unfortunately he does manage to get to Gaspard, and he bites Gaspard, shortly turning Gaspard into a vampire. But Gaspard also manages to retaliate with a holy cross, forcing Victor to retreat. The group makes for their safe house because although Gaspard has been bitten, he now has a connection to Dracula. Back in Dracula's lair, Dracula has Ilya bound with chains. Dracula is telling Ilya that she's going to be his, but Ilya is hearing none of it. Back at the safe house, Gaspard is starting to succumb to the vampire disease. As Gaspard gets closer and closer into turning into a vampire, the group knows they're going to have to put him down. But before they can put him down, they're once again third-partied by Victor. Using that holy whip, Lord Belmont takes off Victor's tongue. But unfortunately, that only slows Victor down as Victor proceeds to keep attacking. But as Victor tries to pounce on Pasha, Pasha proceeds to end Victor's life. Meanwhile, Lord Belmont and his servant make short work of Gaspard, and after impaling him with several blades, they expose him to the sunlight. But instead of killing Gaspard, they make a deal with him. If he takes them to Dracula's lair, they'll let him go. Elsewhere, we see Ilya still bound with gauntlets and chain as Sona approaches her. Now, Sona wants to hurt Ilya because she never liked Ilya in the first place, but fortunately, Dracula's having none of that. Elsewhere, Lord Belmont's team is continuing to scale this mountain to get closer to Dracula's lair. But unfortunately for Ilya, Dracula is on demon time as he approaches Ilya and bites his lip, and he proceeds to kiss her. But as he shoves his tongue down Ilya's throat, he's almost shot with an arrow. Belmont has arrived, and Belmont proceeds to use his whip to impale Dracula with some of the crystals hanging from the cave. Now that the whole team is here, Ilya finally gets freed from her bonds, but she was unexpectedly freed with the help of Gaspard. Now Lord Belmont proceeds to go one-on-one with Dracula. Meanwhile, Pasha has her hands full while she's dealing with Sona. But Pasha's no punk, as Pasha proceeds to behead Sona and end this bitch once and for all. Meanwhile, Lord Belmont's flying high as he has his whip around Dracula's neck while Dracula's flying through the air in his bat form. Belmont climbs up to Dracula while igniting his whip, forcing Dracula to burst in a mass of flames. Dracula crashes into a mountain while being engulfed by flames, seemingly finished once and for all, as Lord Belmont gets to reunite with his one and only bride, Ilya. 6 months later, we see Ilya is pregnant as Lord Belmont and Ilya are expecting a child. But as you could guess, the child already appears to have a vampiric mutation. The end. Thank you for watching.